My people, this one meant a lot to us. We have Mr. Corey Walker, speech language pathologist by trade, father, husband, and the admin of a hugely successful and positive Facebook page called NM Life. We couldn't be prouder of what this guy does. Look it up and check out the multitudes of amazing photography that this guy has hand selected or shot and makes for so many jaw-dropping images of our beautiful state of New Mexico. We were on location at Chatterbox Speech Language Pathology Facility in Albuquerque. These guys graciously allowed us to record our cast. Picture this. The man's got a wood fire going, Christmas tree in the corner. Of course, this was before Christmas. Hardwood floors, walls of books. This thing was like a fancy library or something, all built into an old but beautifully rebuilt adobe house. And for all you future guests out there, he had coffee. Bonus points, Corey, for real, man. That coffee was on point. Please check out his page. It's at facebook.com/NM Life. He also makes an app, and we're going to get to that in the podcast, but he also makes an app. It's called Pocket Speech Language Pathologist. I believe it's actually Pocket SLP. And as always, you can find the APOB crew pursuing that greatness on our Facebook site at facebook.com/APOB media. And if you want to join the murder up on the perch and help us continue our mission of spotlighting people like Corey and his wonderful work in New Mexico, and of course, eventually anywhere else, go to patreon.com/APOB media and help us out because we love you guys and we want to keep doing this. Again, Corey, thank you for real. You're an angel, man. Shut me up and start this podcast already.
So we're here with Corey. He runs New Mexico Life, or NM Life, right?
Yep.
So NM Life Facebook page, and he's also what's the official title?
Speech language pathologist.
Cool. So let's get started first with NM Life, since that's how I found you. Sure. If you want to give us a rundown of how that else got started.
So I had always kind of had an interest in photography, but never really picked up a camera. And long story. Well, okay, it does kind of tie in together. So I ended up going to Eastern New Mexico to get my master's for speech and language pathology.
Where at?
Portales.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, crummy little town.
Yeah.
But
pretty though, right? Isn't Portales supposed to be pretty?
No.
Okay, I've never been apparently.
Depending on which way the wind is drifting, it smells like cow shit or
one of those.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay,
it's flat. Sorry to people in Portales, but anyway,
they know. I'm sure
it's more like right. It's more kind of like Texas. So,
okay.
But it's funny. One day we were taking my family. I have 3 kids.
Okay.
But at the time we had 2, and we took it was a short trip from Portales to Ruidoso.
Okay.
And so we went. My daughter said, we were just staying there, and we were in the pool. She said, "Hey, we should move here." And so on a whim, we said, "Okay, let's move here."
Wow, boy.
So we ended up moving there, but I had never been to that area of the state.
Yeah.
And that area of the state is stunning. And it's got this really unique beauty, Lincoln County in general.
Sure.
Right.
And I just never had seen it. The northern New Mexico, it kind of gets all the praise, but there's so much raw beauty out there, and you can almost feel the days of Billy the Kid and all that kind of stuff.
And that's the stuff that I feel like they try to really capitalize on still for like those, when people come to visit on vacation and stuff, they have all the touristy stuff,
Right.
That's what they show. It's always like Ruidoso, they don't show Portales.
No. So I just was struck by all the unique beauty. So I did start picking up a camera while I was there. And I had this weird fascination with Carrizozo, which it's not in the mountains, but it's kind of at the base of those mountains. So passing by, you would think it's nothing, and I guess it's not much, but there's just something about the raw beauty. And there was this old street by the railroad tracks, which used to be a hopping area of the state back when the railroad was going. And I just fell in love with it. So I started picking up a camera, getting into photography. And so I started up a Facebook page. This must have been 2011. And I started it. posting my own pictures,
All right.
and which didn't get much traffic, but then I just kind of had the idea. I said, you know what? Why just limit it to me? Let's represent the state.
Sure.
And so I did a lot of knocking on doors, finding local photographers to kind of start sharing their own photography of the
Wow.
state. And
I didn't know that, man.
To really represent the state. And it just took off from there. I had to do a lot of hustling to get it to around like 10,000 followers, I guess.
Sure.
I bet.
But after that, it kind of had legs of its own,
Sure.
and started getting a lot of people submitting photos that I had no idea who they were.
And you primarily do this through Facebook?
Yep. Oh yeah. Only.
Okay.
Well, I have an Instagram.
Sure.
But it doesn't have the following that I just started that not too long ago.
Got you.
Because you're
Okay.
right around, what, 85,000 followers
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. Close to 85,000.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's and then in let's see, 2015, I guess I partnered with somebody for a little while, and so I really put some muscle into it. It's been a lot of time. Just being consistent, and that's really how it grew. Just consistency. There's a lot of days where I thought, man, nobody's paying attention to this. Why am I doing it?
Yeah.
We feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're going through. Or we're going through.
Yeah.
We're.
Right. Yeah. But the consistency and it all boiled down to my love of New Mexico.
Sure.
It's in my bones. I moved away here and there for a while.
But would you say that's more like you're not working? I mean, you're doing what you love. So even though you're putting something down,
Yeah.
sure. Okay.
Yeah,
So ultimately, this is building the basis for what becomes. I'm almost trying to like guess that there might be a way to connect that with speech language, but I'm like, where's he going?
Well, so really the only connection, at least initially, is just the fact that I was in Portales getting my degree.
Sure.
And because of that is when I was in Ruidoso and fell in love with Lincoln County.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And became a photographer. And then, but they have not really crossed paths until, just the other day.
Really? Okay.
When I decided, I've never been interested at all. I put my own pictures out there, but I've never been interested in having myself out there.
Sure.
Right.
But then I thought, you know what? I made this app, and I do care tremendously about the state. I've worked in the schools for 11 years.
Wow. Okay.
Until I came to this clinic. So I just want to be able to take my knowledge and get it out there into the homes of families across the state, because it's real basic stuff. I'm kind of jumping here with
No, that's cool. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's perfect.
to speech language pathology, but the knowledge that we have about how to build up language is great for children who have delays, which is who I see all the time.
Sure.
But it is really gold for the brain. And if parents kind of just knew a little bit about what we do when they're raising their children, it can have profound effects on children as they get ready for school.
So I want to pause there. I want you to continue there. But
Yeah.
what did you go to school for? I don't know if we covered that, because you said you were going to study there, and then you picked up photography. But what was the degree in?
Speech pathology.
Okay, that totally
So
makes
that's what
sense.
it was.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
sorry if I. Yeah.
No, that meant.
No, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. So then I'm sorry. Continue on that then.
Yeah.
So
So going into the release of the app, which is what I kind of was talking about on NM Life the other day. As speech and language pathologists, we kind of have two things that we do.
okay.
One is just work. It's kind of what everybody knows that we do. Is just work on helping kids articulate better. So kids who maybe say "wabbit" for rabbit, R is one of the big
So
ones.
So my son says R, all instead of R. It's all.
Yep.
Am I saying that right? Is that how it usually comes out? Yeah.
Yes, I'm very familiar.
And what's interesting though is that it seems to me like when I stop him and make him enunciate it and really think about it, then he can apply hearing what I'm saying and try to slow down and R instead of ow, you know, that weird. And it's funny that I have to make and I didn't think about it until we started looking at this stuff. And I was like, man, I wonder if that app would help him with that. So with your app, I could help my son do something as basic as maybe work on his R's, his O's.
Yep. On his hours. Yeah. So that's there's a lot of applications out there for speech and language pathologists, but what's particularly unique about mine, and I've been doing this for many years actually. But
Developing the app.
the apps, yeah, I've had, gosh, we've sold probably 70,000-80,000 of them in the past.
Really? Wow.
But I'm kind of regrouping and taking everything. There's lots of moving pieces and different apps that I had for different parts of articulation. And it just kind of happened naturally over the years. Oh, now I should do this, and now I should do this. But then I was bothered by the fact that they should all be in one application.
Sure.
To use them all in the same. So what's unique about our app is that they have movies that kind of go into the mouth. You can see through the mouth.
I saw some of that in your promo video.
Yeah.
It was on your page.
Yeah. And that, we get feedback from speech pathologists all the time. They're just saying, this is fantastic. These kids have picked up R's in 2 days, 3 days.
Wow.
Which traditionally it's the hardest thing that we do to fix. So my goal is to be able for parents to be able to open it up and have the knowledge of a speech and language pathologist at their hands.
Right.
So I want to delve further into that, but what is the name of the app?
It's called Speech Tutor Pro.
Speech Tutor Pro. Okay. And there's, this is you said that you had other versions of it, but this is like now the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have one called Speech Tutor, and that's been our most popular app over the years, and it was only the videos.
Sure. Where the Pro, I'm sure, gets you all the extra stuff.
Yeah. So it has the videos, but we have to drill in order to practice. We just say rabbit, say rock, and we just drill. But in order to see the videos, you had to hop over to the other app while you're drilling.
Sure.
And then we had another one that allowed parents or therapists to screen their kids. So, okay, is my kid might be saying these sounds wrong. Is it okay that they're doing that or not? Sure. And so what this app does is you can screen them. You make them say a certain amount of words, walks you through. And then at the end, it tells you, okay, they missed this sound and this sound and this sound, but it's normal for them to miss it at certain ages.
Sure.
And so you can see. And then whatever they missed, then you can go do the decks.
Yeah, that's huge. So essentially, you're digitizing the therapy that you would typically do in person at an appointment with, like my son, let's say, if he came in.
That's right.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and you always need a speech pathologist. Well, not always, not necessarily, but I don't want to put us out of business.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my questions.
There's certain things that an app just isn't going to do,
right?
But not necessarily. Like you go in there, you look at some of these videos, do a little bit of reading up, and you maybe consult a speech therapist here and there. But you got everything you need to practice at home, which is the most important thing.
That's heavy, man. So in the development, you are doing the developing?
I am not the coder.
Okay.
No.
So you're the Overwatch. You're the guy that puts all the pieces. Okay. Yeah. And then is that with like a partner of yours? Like
I found this angel. I think he might actually be an angel. He's just this wonderful guy. He's a retired. I think he's a retired UNM professor for computer science.
Can we give him a shout out?
Sure, yeah. His name is Charles Crowley.
Wow, yeah. Mr. Crowley. Right. That's so awesome.
My wife has had the similar reaction.
Yeah. So shout out, Mr. Crowley. All right, man. That's cool.
But programmers, they probably even admit this themselves, can be a finicky, tricky bunch.
Little antisocial.
Yeah. And they're just kind of they want to get their work done just like everybody else, and they're
kind of OCD about it.
If you're like, oh shoot, I should have had this done. I forgot to do this. They get a little upset. But this guy has just been an angel. He wants it to be the best that it can be.
Wow.
And so there's been many times where I've kind of messed things up or not thought something through all the way, and I go, oh shoot, this needs to happen. And no problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
That's a good tool to have in your box.
yeah. He is something else. By far the best programmer I've ever worked with.
So he programs. You guys have an Android and an Apple.
Right now it's just Apple.
Just Apple. Okay.
Yeah, so, and we probably will have an Android, but it's interesting. Let's see, I released our first app in 2011, and it started off a little bit slow, but nothing like it had ever been done in the industry.
Wow.
And it really took off primarily because it keeps data. So we have to keep very good records as we go along, so we can show how they're progressing, or hopefully they're progressing. But it was keeping data was tally marks.
Sure.
And so now you just have to press buttons and it keeps data for you. So it ended up really taking off, and I can't remember where I was going with that. But anyway, yeah, we just started back in 2011, and it slowly took off, and finally now for speech therapists, it's a staple for many of them, at least for articulation.
Sure.
Who made the graphics and stuff that are in there? I saw the movies, and some of them look like they were like almost like comic book ish in the illustration.
The movies, I found a guy. Gosh, where was he from? I want to say he was in Australia or something. I found him many years ago that did just the movie graphics.
Okay.
And it is amazing. I've seen other people try to do what we've tried to do, and it's very clinical and clunky.
Sure.
And ours has that, and it's enough realistic to where it's not scary.
Sure.
But it's really phenomenal, I think. But the rest of the graphics, unfortunately, I have done.
Okay. It looks ridiculously polished. I'm proud of it.
That's good.
Just for knowing that you're a New Mexican creating this amazing app. And granted, you're the overseer, but it wouldn't have happened without you and what's the knowledge you have and the passion that you have.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on to our podcast for just
definitely
just being an angel yourself, man. That's cool. Because like you said, you're kind of working yourself out of a job, sort of. Not you per se, right? But because I work in speech, I don't work in speech. I work for a rehab hospital. I work in IT. So I deal with these, people that are in various therapy positions quite a bit.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, I'll see scenarios where there is this line that eventually gets hit, where they're making a decision, like somebody could be kind of pesky, or they're not pesky, they're just, rude, and they're doing it because they care, and to have something like that where they're not shooting blood somewhere and you've got to cover that wound back up, like that shows that you're there because you want to be and because you care, and you work through those issues with people that are maybe a little, hard to teach or hard to rehab, because I know that can come from stroke victims and things like that, that they need to be taught how to speak again after so many years and all that, right? Does this kind of stuff apply to people that have issues outside of being a child, like an adult?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I even, I put 2 different looks. So you press a button and it comes up as very kid looking, but you press one button and then it's not kid looking.
Right.
So, and that's aimed at a lot of times the older kids who still have lingering articulation issues, and they might be in 6th grade or something. They don't want to look at these little owls.
Right.
Sure.
And likewise with patients who have had strokes, and definitely speech is one of the top things that are affected with strokes.
Right.
Wow.
So.
And I think it's really cool that you're bringing treatment into technological age.
Yep.
I think that's really important for people to be moving forward.
Yeah.
With technology. I work for an electrical contractor, and they're bringing so much technology to construction. It's unreal.
Wow.
Like, just to see that, you put those Google lenses on and you walk into a job site and you can look and see where all the ducting goes. And
you're kidding.
Yeah.
Really?
Just
wow.
that, and they want to attach those. They want to attach those to people's hard hats, and they can look and see everything on the job site. And it's amazing to see what technology is going to do.
Yeah.
For construction, let alone people being treated.
Yeah.
For whatever ails them, and I think that's awesome that you're bridging that gap.
Yeah, and kids enjoy it, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My son picks up on the tablet, and he amazes me what he can do with that thing.
Shoot.
And he just learns it. He just picks it up. And I was like, man. So it makes sense that you put it, as an app, because that's something relatable for the kids and something they'd get into.
Yeah.
My son has, he says the C's are like T's to him.
Okay,
So
that,
like toffee and tar and, kitties, but
right.
we don't know how that...
You'd be amazed at things I've heard over
Yeah,
there.
I bet.
It's interesting that you say that, because ours with your son, ours, and so we call that velar fronting, what your son does.
Okay.
So they take all the sounds that are in the back, g and k, and they put them up front.
Right.
And
Huh.
that's the other thing that I work with all day long.
Really?
Interesting.
I really don't know what it. Ours I understand because it's a tricky tongue positioning.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand the k and g.
Right.
But it's so common.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
It's super cute though. I don't want him
It
to
is
stop.
Yeah, I have a 2-year-old boy as well, and he's on ote instead of okay, and I'm like, you could just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
keep saying it. Ote. Yeah.
So I was gonna talk about something. So some of my nieces and nephews and cousins and whatnot, their parents would talk to them when they were kids, and they'll be like, and it drove me nuts. And I'm like, how do you expect them to talk to you if you keep telling them?
Yep.
And what do you feel about that?
We discourage parents from. So we do discourage them from doing that, and there is something that's really natural and beautiful about that at a certain stage. In fact, we call it motherese. It's natural for a parent to want to talk to that. In fact, it's quite important, especially early on. But as they get a little bit older, even like 2, you got to talk to them. Talk to them as you're going through the world, and modeling. Inappropriate language does have a lingering effect.
Right.
And I found that
It's interesting that you say that, man.
Yeah.
My mom always gives me grief for that when they start saying it, because she's grandma, How dare you? You better he can hear you. Mom, come on. I'll spank him. No, I'm just, I won't spank him.
Yeah. And I've even found that regionally when I lived in Lincoln County. I noticed that they all, not all, but so many of the families would talk to their kid like, me wants that, me wants this.
Sure.
And I had to deal with that all the time in the schools.
Yeah.
And I used to do a lot of home visits. So I would work with kids who were at risk from the time they were born till 3 years old. And so I ended up going in the homes, and that's how I put that together. It's like, oh, no wonder they're talking like that.
Sure.
Right. Right.
That's how you're talking to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference. It really does.
Yep. Yeah.
I think it does.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, my son he tells me some crazy stuff. Like he'll tell me, Dad, that's incredible. And I'm like, where did he learn that from?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll use incredible like once in a while.
Or
but-
epic.
Epic,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, epic
but
comes
I really
back
have
a
to
lot
think
for me.
about those kind of things. Like,
Sure.
that's incredible, son. Like,
Yeah.
I don't say that. Like, that's really cool, son. Like, he's speaking. He has a better vocabulary than me sometimes.
So, this touches on something that probably is that if I'm on any kind of mission, this is a good segue into that. And I touched on this earlier about how speech language pathologists know certain ways of building up language. And there's very basic things that we do that if I could get them into the homes. So there's so many studies out there, neurological studies about children who grow up in what I call a language-rich environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially you talking to them like you talk to your wife or to your friends.
We're very stout about that with our kids. We don't
Yeah.
do the baby talk
Yeah.
at all. I got 3 kids as well, and that's
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
always been since day one. Like, let's try. When they're baby,
Right.
And I mean baby, like you said. There's
Yeah.
that time, but once he can understand me and he's trying to say the same thing I am,
Yeah.
I make sure to be clear. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just saying I completely level with that because that's a policy I've taken for years, and
Yeah,
hopefully
same
it'll
here.
benefit me. I'm hoping, so I'm glad that I have a professional.
Yeah. It just will, and I have seen amazing things come out of kids that grow up like this, and you just gotta. It kind of. I mean, there's more to it. There's levels that I could touch on that would bore everybody at this point, but it really you narrate your life as you're with them. Even when they're 6 months old and you're holding them and you narrate your life with them. And there's been studies that have shown that it's literally language, and it's quite profound and beautiful, I think, but language is the single most important thing to brain development.
Wow.
And it only works when it's people talking to people. It doesn't work if you sit your kids in front of a TV.
Or an iPad that drives
Yeah.
me crazy,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
It and here I am saying this as I'm talking about iPad apps.
Sure.
but
well, that's to fix it. That's not.
right. Yeah. And I do intend to kind of fight fire with fire that way with some other apps coming out to reach the parents. Like, okay, here's good ways to speak with your children and some activities to do. Now set the iPad down and go do this.
Sure.
But it is just, I don't know what it is. It's something I find so profound that language, something that's kind of invisible, going from you to your child is the single most important thing you do. And when you talk to them in certain ways, they will fly in school and in life. And it's just, it's so important.
So what do you feel? How do you feel about reading from an early age? Like, does it help just as
This
much?
place is full of books, man. What kind of question is that?
That's true.
It is.
Yeah. We didn't talk about where we're at, man. Do you want to talk about where we're at? I just want to put a little shout out there.
So I want to touch on working here. It's called Chatterbox, and it's a speech therapy clinic, private speech therapy clinic.
Beautiful private speech
Yes,
therapy.
it's a really nice place.
Yeah. As we sit in this setting, it's a really cool place in the North Valley, and like I said, I've worked in all settings, in the schools for years, and in homes all over the place. And I was finally getting to the point after about a decade where I was not really enjoying being a speech pathologist anymore because of all the bureaucracy in the schools. And, I spend my days doing paperwork rather than working with kids.
Sure.
And I wondered if I would enjoy it again. And then I came to this place, to Chatterbox. And it's one-on-one. We see him for 30 minutes. We have 15 minutes after that to kind of talk with the parents about what we need to do. And I just love it again. I love being a speech therapist again. And beyond all that, I've seen more progress than I ever have in my life with kids.
Well, I'm gonna talk to our listeners about what I saw when I got here. So I pull up and we get out of our vehicle and I smell like a wood fire going, and it's like I'm like, oh, this is nice. We're getting off like 4th Street. This is 4th Street, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think. So I'm like, oh, this is nice. And I look at the house. It looks like this house has been remodeled, but this has got to be probably like a few years old, 100 maybe. Can we say?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Very old, but it's an old Adobe stucco whatever house, and we come up the stairs and it's real gorgeous. And you come inside and it's all wood floors. Got a fireplace going. That's like legit, and it's like all ready to go. I felt like I was in your house. I was like, are we in the right place? But it says Chatterbox, so I could see how this can be. I mean, you've got art on the walls. You've got it just feels like you're going to like uncle's house or something, or auntie's house. Like, hey, come in. We had coffee when we got here. So yeah, thank you, Chatterbox.
Yeah, that's a very awesome place.
Yeah, and I have to say the owner, she has the same passions that I do, and ambiance is important to her too.
Do you think that's what made the difference in igniting your passion for it again, is to come back to somebody that has the same thing? Like you guys, again, come to that spot where it's like, screw this, but I still want to help. And then now you're finding a person that feels the same way. I mean, how did Chatterbox come to be? Do you know?
It's interesting. Our paths should have crossed many years before. When I worked in Lincoln County, I also worked on the Mescalero Reservation.
Oh, wow.
And we did home visits there. And my wife, she's also a speech therapist. And so she worked out there too. And we left. It was interesting circumstances out there. Anyway, we left from working out there, and the people who filled our shoes were the people who started up Chatterbox.
Huh.
I didn't know that at the time because we just left and we left.
Sure.
But anyway, so that they took our place, and they ended up finding the same frustrations. She may end up correcting me, but the same frustrations that we did. And I think they wanted to get back. She's just the owner. Her name is Tanya Friend. She's just a go-getter.
Thank you, Tanya, for letting us come in here. We appreciate you.
And so she just decided to start up her own clinic. She went for it. It's I can tell you, I've thought about it myself. It's a very intimidating thing. And you just kind of got to go for it. And she did. And we have clients in and out of here all day long. So yeah.
I was thinking about this, and before I forget it, I wanted to bring it up just because we're talking about the different demographics, I guess, that you would treat, and here and also there. There was an episode of Joe Rogan's podcast where he had a gentleman named Paul Stamets on it. I remember his name this time. I remember his name.
That's a good job.
Alpha Brain, see? We're taking these nootropics that Joe Rogan sells on the On It brand into Alpha Brain. Oh my gosh! So we took some. I can remember now. So Paul Stamets is on there.
I need some.
Yeah, I brought some. I know. I'll get you one. No. So he had a severe stutter.
Okay.
and it was bad. And I keep hearing you say the word articulate, and I feel like that's like kind of some speech language pathologist jargon. But do you? Caveat: he cured that with a lot of mushrooms, more than he should have, and like a rainstorm in the so that's a whole nother story. Not to say that that's what people want.
I think I listened to that.
Did you?
I listened to a snippet of it.
Right.
Maybe he has a lot of guys on there talking about mushrooms. But
This is true.
Right. But at the end of the day, I think what was cool is that they circled back around to the idea that it's surfacing insecurities by being on this mushroom trip and blah blah blah, and you're confronting it and essentially working on it. I feel like, but maybe again, that's a whole nother deal of doing it. But in your line of work, do you guys deal with people that have stutters and ages, and then also like how does that work? Like he said, it's a brain thing. Like if I wanted to say hello, how are you? I'm already at how are you before I'm at hello. So I'm like trying to get there. Does that sound about right?
yeah, man, stuttering is far and away the most tricky thing. It falls in our lap because we work with speech.
Sure.
Right.
And definitely we work with people who stutter. And there are tactics and things that we do to kind of help them along. But it is not always in our scope to fix it because it is often, not always, but often just more of a mental thing, and where counseling and things can end up fixing it.
Sure.
And it's one of the trickiest things. I find it fascinating, but the more attention you draw to it, the worse it gets.
That's what he was saying, right? Like if somebody made you, or they tried to correct them, or like say the word for him, it would drive them nuts because it was almost embarrassing to have that happen.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's like the worst thing you can do to somebody who stutters is say, especially for little kids, because it's natural to want to go stop, slow down, try again, but it's actually the worst thing. Well, one of the worst things you can do.
Sure.
So you really got to dance around it. It's I have a little girl who comes and sees me who stutters. Pardon me, and we watch YouTube videos and sing all day long.
And, right, because they don't stutter when they sing. Anybody?
That's right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
I heard that in that too. Okay.
So she's very young, so it's hard to get her to really implement it yet. But the more rhythm and intonation that you can implement when you do encounter stuttering, the just better off you are. That's why they don't stutter. It's a right brain, left brain thing.
Right.
Sure.
Language is very left brain, singing, but when you're singing, it's right brain. And
So it kind of lets your brain work without overthinking it,
right.
essentially.
Yeah,
Sure. Okay.
yeah, exactly. And and it's funny because she, I didn't think it was working, or it did seem like this little girl that comes here was improving. I can never quite tell what her parents thought, but she was off for 2 weeks, and sure enough, she came back and she was stuttering a lot more. And she goes, I don't know what you do, but she was gone for 2 weeks and now she's stuttering more. So,
So maybe it's just the idea of focusing on it, though, like her just having to think about changing it. You know what I mean? Is that okay? Because as I'm sure you have to be mindful of how you talk. Because my son doesn't snap; he doesn't hear it when he says "oh."
Right.
So I have to make him think about it. Like, you don't hear that, son? Like, listen to your sister say it. I'll have her say it. And I feel bad sometimes because it turns into us kind of all looking at him like, you're saying it wrong.
Yeah.
So we try not to do it constantly.
you're doing it perfect then.
Okay, yeah, because I feel like that's too much pressure. Like, okay, I'm sorry, I meant to say just this word, you know.
And you're onto something there. It's natural to want to just get kids to say a sound the right way.
Right.
But you need, most of the time they don't hear it. So it's oftentimes a listening activity before it's ever practicing the sound the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
We do something similar with my son too, where if he's having issues with the word, my wife will have him look at her mouth, and she'll do the mouth movements with him.
Good.
And that helps.
Yeah.
It really helps.
It does.
See, and it's funny because both of my kids have progressed at different rates as far as speech and walking and stuff goes. And I think a little bit after one, my son was talking a lot. And my little girl, she's 15 months now. And she's not quite there yet, doing ba ba da da and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to see their different stages.
There is a wide range, and I always try to let parents know that, because it's natural to go, well, my first one talked a whole bunch,
right?
And why isn't this one?
Sure.
And there are certain milestones to keep an eye on, but you also shouldn't freak out because there's such a wide range, and that's what's beautiful about humans, and our differences. And,
I like how you said that.
Yeah.
So, are you fluent in any other language, or do you just train English?
Just English. I actually minored in Spanish. Back then, I had no idea I was going to be a speech pathologist. So I can talk with 2 and 3-year-olds. That's about it.
That can be another language.
Yeah.
So you're on the reservation doing work. How did that? It was a reservation, you said? Okay.
Yeah.
How did that work for you? Like, was that harder to teach? Because you're working on their English.
We were, yes.
Did they speak native tongue language? Whatever.
Mostly not.
No?
They speak English, but it's very different out there because you are dealing with different cultural standards.
Sure.
And particularly, I think this goes for a lot of Native American cultures. They're not as big on speaking. They teach not through speaking, but through what they do.
Sure.
So language is not as much of a big deal for them.
Huh.
And on paper that sounds great, but a lot of times, I just think that in today's society, it's harder to implement, teaching by what we do.
Sure.
So,
apps, social media. I can
Yeah,
see that because you don't have that interaction like you're talking about.
right. It's the interaction isn't there as much as it once was.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
So-
I try to read to my son and my daughter. Read, at bedtime. My grandma was a librarian for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
So her thing was
Wow.
always books.
Yeah.
She'd always buy us books, and for Christmas she'd be reading us stories before we open presents. And every time we'd go over there, she'd be reading a book or she'd give us books.
It's
and
magic, right?
Yeah. And I really got hooked on reading. I love to read.
Yeah.
And when you're reading to your kids, it's different than when you're reading for pleasure for yourself. It's kind of like you're getting into another mode, and you're letting the book take you wherever the book takes you. But when you're reading to your kids, it's like you're seeing that happen with the kids.
Yeah.
And just seeing that little magical light sparking. I mean, I'll read 4 or 5 stories to him when I'm like, no, Daddy, please, just one more. And
Just keep rocking those books. They know how to do it too, because once they got you, they're like, "Oh, I've got it."
They know.
I've got, and he won't bring them all. He'll bring one at a time because he knows he can keep bringing. Like, "Oh, we're done now. Thanks, son."
Yeah.
I go back to what I'm doing. Dad, got another one.
He's tricked me now. He brings the big book of bedtime stories. There's several stories in the one
Keeps you
book.
going.
So when you turn the page, the next story begins. And he's like,
Uh-oh,
just
Dad,
keep going.
You walked right into that one.
Yeah.
I started doing voices because I try to get my boys into voices, and I'm not an aspiring, but I'd love to be an aspiring voice actor. So I try to do different voices for the different characters, like Sesame Street.
I do that too. I fail miserably.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, I'll just get them all crisscrossed and messed up. But I think my kids like that because they're hearing me. Like English accents and Texan accents. You got to learn how to draw out vowels and do different things to where it's no, when you're talking like that, and just the way that you learn to make that sound, I think, is actually studying the speech because you're listening to the way that the accent comes out. And I've never thought that people that had a really strong accent, like, I've never had an issue with it because I love to hear how they're enunciating my words.
Right.
And I say my word like English, and it's so interesting to hear how that can vary from, you see it here a lot with people that are from, Mexico or somewhere, south, and they don't speak English, but they're trying to. And to hear an adult grasp it is so much different than a kid that may have grown up bilingual or something like that here, So them saying it, it's just, it helps me hear it to where I can reproduce it. You know what I mean? And and I like to do that with the kids all the time. And I tell them, like, I'm no expert at all, but I can tell you when you're like, they'll go to do an accent, I'm like, that's spot on, and they get all excited for it. So I think they try to listen to the way I do it. And it may help them, I think, going back to their English language, or should I say their American accent, their normal accent or whatever, it helps them enunciate sometimes because I'll say words and my son will try it, like in an English accent. I'm like, you're close. Listen to the R's, we're on the R's still. So.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess it's a weird connection, but I love to do the voices with the kids and it seems to engage them more too. So
It really does. And I'm sure they enjoy it. And it just makes it all that much more fun. And it's just important to do exactly what you guys are doing,
I appreciate that, man. How old are your kids?
They're across. So I have a daughter who's 23.
Okay.
And then a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Wow.
So,
you're going to be busy for your whole life. Did you know that?
We're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, that's
cool.
So, but, speaking to what you guys were talking about, we're reading with the kids. I think sometimes people, I get that a lot. Like, should we read to them? Why is it important to read to them? And and
do you get stunned sometimes by the stuff that comes out of parents' mouths? Like you're teaching them to parent sometimes.
You'd be surprised. I think it just does not come naturally to some people.
Sure.
And then others have just had crummy upbringings
Sure.
themselves, but sitting and reading and this is one thing that we do as language pathologists. We call it modeling and expanding.
Okay.
So, but expanding while you're reading. So, yes, great. Read what's on the page. Have fun with the story. But like before you turn the page, talk about everything that else is on there.
Like reflection. Essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, here's Spider-Man. Look at his helmet. Or no, he doesn't wear a helmet, but you know what I mean? Like, just talk about all the different things that are on the other pages. Use as many adjectives as you can, and really just. I don't have to tell anybody. We all kind of know, but I don't think we quite realize what magnitude children are sponges to what magnitude they are.
Well put.
And it's just so incredible. And it feels like maybe sometimes it's not sinking in, especially when they're 6 months or whatever. But it really is that magic and it's just so important. So
that's awesome, man.
I'm glad to hear you guys are doing that because it works.
We try to. That's for sure. All three of them sometimes will come at me with these, and I'm like, I only got enough voices for one of you right now. Let's sit down.
Correct.
That's funny too because right around the time of bedtime is they want to do yoga, they want to flip kick and Power Ranger and all this kind of stuff, and you're like, okay, bring it down, open the book and my grandma was like that when you said about the looking at every page, like she would look at the page and be like, oh, do you see that? Or do you like she'll kind of like segue each page together. So like, okay, so now this part's leading to this part. What do you think's gonna happen? And then now those cogs are turning, and now they're thinking about it. Yeah. And I think that really helps for comprehension and all that kind of stuff because when I was a kid, I started off in a special education. And then I moved school districts, and then I was gifted. How that works?
Should have been in the gifted class.
Yeah.
I mean,
how that works, I don't know. But my comprehension, try to be. But my comprehension and stuff was so much better than what my parents had thought. Yeah. And I was getting in trouble in school and stuff like that just because I was just so bored. Yep. I was really bored.
Very typical.
Do you find that a lot? With some of
yes. Yes. Yeah. And you're spot on.
Yeah.
I mean, when. Maybe who knows? You might have just been born that way and good comprehension. But I'm certain that the way your grandmother read to you helped because when you do have this strong base in language, you got to think of it as a child who really has not. It wasn't spoken to a lot. They're sitting in front of the TV a long time. People aren't using adjectives and blah blah blah. So they're sitting in class and they hear these words that they don't understand what they mean.
Right.
And all it takes is, especially if you're having attention issues, all it takes is one word where you're like, I don't know, what does that mean? Thinking about it, and boom, the class keeps going.
And you've lost the core subject matter.
And you lost it, and that frustration builds over the time. And so you see kids that are acting out.
Getting resentful that they can't keep up.
Yep. Wow. And that boils down to, if they had a better foundation in language,
right?
It could have solved a lot of problems.
It's definitely helped my writing too in school.
I bet,
because I was interested in synonyms so much. Like
it really didn't help how it looks, Doug. I mean, it's grammatical.
Hey, I'll take that. Class, it's all cool. I'll take it. I'm gonna write about that later.
Yeah,
keep that in mind.
So can I got to jump in on our app stuff. So I work for the rehab hospital. One of my coworkers, and we're not going to get too far into it, but we're going to do a podcast with him next Friday in a VR space. So we're going to use different devices to be in a digital VR chat room.
Really?
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So some of the stuff that we've talked about, because he's more or less self-taught, but he's one of the few Unity developers in town that's actually a certified Unity developer.
Oh, so he does that.
Yeah, and he does, and specifically he works on VR for the Vive. Are you familiar with the HTC Vive at all?
No.
So out of the VR that's out right now, consumer level, the best thing you can get out of the box is something called the HTC Vive. It's a mix of Steam, the company that makes the PC games, and then
my
HTC.
son's way into games.
Yeah, okay. So basically that is their physical product besides a controller box unit they also sell, but it's a headset. And you put this on, you've got 1080p on each eye. And I've talked about this before in another podcast, so I won't get too far in it, but essentially you have two trackers in either corner of a space about this size, and it tracks your body in real time. If I'm crouching, if I'm rolling, if I'm touching, and it's the only tech of its kind because most of the other ones are controller based, and then your head just moves within it. You can look around, but you can't actually get up and dodge the bullets and jump up and down and crawl through stuff. So one of the ideas that him and I have kicked around, and more him than me, but I've just kind of helped develop it, is in our therapy gym that we have at our rehab hospitals. We work with a lot of geriatrics, but we also have some kids, some young kids, thugging and get shot or something and become paralyzed. Those kind of, but mostly geriatrics. And in those spaces, only one of our facilities has a therapy gym where they tie them to this harness that's running to a computer, which is on a track. And essentially, they have like an issue walking or something. They would have the compensation dialed in through the application or through the software to say, well, his left leg doesn't support his weight where his right leg does better. Wow. So left leg's weak, hold him up better there. So as he steps, he goes in this path that goes along the track. It's cutting edge stuff. So we're going to our IT director, because we're a small IT department for all the hospitals. It's like central IT. Hey, man, we sit down, and he's a smart cat, so we sit down and we're like, well, why don't we think about what the difference would be if they had a headset on and they were in a different place? Like if I had PTSD from, and I could be speaking way out of my territory here, but I have PTSD from something. If I'm freaking out in this gym, I put a headset on and I'm doing the same therapy, but I feel like I'm in a forest or I'm in space or I'm wherever. Do you think that kind of technology could be used for something like you do, to put a kid that may have like a jacked background for his home life come here and you put him in space? I mean, do you think that would affect him more than just what you've done? Because I feel like what you guys are doing at Chatterbox is a lot to do with the ambiance, like you said, like the way that you bring it to him and make him feel comfortable. Do you think something like that would add to the therapeutic value?
Me personally, heck yeah. Definitely. I think it could be phenomenal. There is also a big movement, and Chatterbox really subscribes more to getting away from technology, actually.
Sure. Okay.
Playing with blocks and blah, blah, blah. That said, though, they're forward thinkers also. So,
sure.
But personally, I think that, I've thought about that. I've dreamed about that sort of thing, like virtual reality, like how you could teach language. And
sure.
I teach descriptive language all the time, and every now and then, I'll pull up stuff from Google or whatever, but I can only just imagine, we're talking about, something feels rough, and you could see,
I got you.
That's
okay,
rough,
like haptic feedback
like
kind of stuff. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I guess I didn't even think about that, man.
Yeah, the possibilities
sure.
are limitless. With
yeah,
that.
yeah. So. And that's something that I thought about for a while too. I said, man, what applications could you blend? Like you were talking about the FaceTime with humans, and then your app, and this how you kind of have this. I have this app from Comcast that lets you, if you have Xfinity, it's called XFi, and I can put the profile of each of my kids' machines, and I say 1 hour a day. I say it goes off at 9. And there's all kinds of stuff. Your Amazon tablet for Zeke has the same thing.
Same kind of thing, right?
So do you feel like that's something that at one point you want them to get off your app and go and talk? Shut off the app,
This particular one, I wouldn't worry about it so much.
Okay.
Just because it's a lot of drill and it's practice. I have had other language ones. One in particular that it's for categorizing. And categorizing is a phenomenal way to not only teach language, but also for language recall. Just basically creating like file cabinets in the brain, so children can kind of go, oh, boom, this is a food and it's a fruit, and
wow,
it's red.
Okay.
So anyway, so I had an app that had to do with categorizing, and it did start to have that kind of addictive nature, because you're just dragging things and going into it. So,
got you.
Now, that particular one wasn't that bad, but I would definitely, you got to shut it off sometimes.
Sure.
So if it was good enough, in quotes, good enough, to where there would be some kind of, they spend too much time on it.
Sure.
Definitely.
Nintendo does that,
Definitely.
I think. They're like, hey, are you sure you don't need a break?
Yeah.
They give you like a little thing.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
awesome.
said you had pretty good success coming out on your NM Life page with your, saying who you are and what you do. Do you foresee more of that in the future? Or?
I don't know. Like I said, I've been running it for 5 years, and I've put my pictures on, but I've never been interested in showing myself. But
you're a handsome guy, man. Come on.
I'll just post some
There
shots.
you go. There you go.
But I don't know. I kind of fight with the idea of, most people are on it because they like pretty pictures of New Mexico.
Sure.
So do they really? How much do they want to hear about speech therapy apps? I don't know.
Sure.
Right.
But what does the mix look like typically for you? Like, do you control your social media page?
I do.
You do. So do you use like tools to like place things that go automated?
I used to,
Posts and all
The Facebook pages will you can schedule things.
Right.
Okay.
So I used to like clockwork, and it took some time, but I would post 5 times a day, and sometimes more. But
I give you credit, man. I know how hard that is.
it is, yeah, it's a lot. And I used to think, I'd bother people, but actually, really to grow it, it's that or more.
Really?
Is a good way to do it. And over the last year, we like I told you briefly, I partnered with somebody, and we really kind of tried to make a go of things almost as a business with it. And I stepped away from that and just focusing on the app. So I post a few times a week now. But I definitely love it and intend to do more things with it. But to answer your question, yeah, I would automate things. So I would spend all night figuring out the content that I wanted on.
Yeah. Yeah. We've kind of felt that our page, you just see post.
Yeah.
And we felt like maybe we personalized it more in a sense of, just showing our personalities or our sense of humor sometimes, which, how can I explain it? It could be rough around the edges, maybe a little explicit for some audiences.
Yeah.
If you listen to some of our podcasts, I'm sure you've heard colorful language.
Well, and the aim was when we initially did this is we had no idea what we're doing, and it just kind of sounded like a fun thing to do, and it still is. That's absolutely what we would love to make
it's
this
totally a passion
be a
project.
career. Yeah, but what was interesting is we didn't know who and what, so we kind of were all takers, and so we just started asking people like, "Hey, what do you guys think?" And it was mostly bands because they're into the promotion side of it.
Of course.
But when we first started out, we were like, "Well, we've got no likes. We actually don't have a podcast out yet, but you'll be the first one, or you'll be
be a lot.
Yeah, and now that it's picking up steam, like there's some legitimacy, just like anybody, if you came and somebody hit you up and was like, let's do this thing, and then you go to their page, it looks like they're in, Bangladesh or something, and it's like, oh man, what do you mean? No, spam, or something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like now we're getting to the point where we're kind of getting our head into the right wind or whatever you call it. We're kind of taking off with it. And I think it's really cool that we have somebody that, like yourself, that is without missing a beat, you're able to bridge that gap of I would feel like you said, like you come here and this is almost like analog. This is old school speech language, but you're understanding everybody that is, for lack of a better word, like millennials and younger, and that's hard to say for a lot of medical, folks. Because you're taught to go into books and you're taught to regiment and to, and for you to be able to articulate and put that into an app and teach people like that, that's top shelf, man. Do you teach at all? Is that something you ever think you might end up doing?
You couldn't pay me enough money to go get my PhD. So, no way. So no, but I have thought quite a bit about being a little bit more, putting myself out there and just kind of brief little tutorials, a few minutes long for parents, and just, it's me talking, hey, here's what you do with your kids.
Sure. And this is something you're kind of tying into the YouTube, right? You have a YouTube channel that...
I have one for the speech pathology one, but I've just started adding stuff to it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I noticed your face on one of the videos on the promo. Saw your face on there, right?
Oh, did I? I don't know.
Like, that's the guy. Yeah, that's the
guy. But it's interesting when you were talking about trying to build that audience, and the one magic thing that I found, and it took me a while to realize how powerful images are.
Yeah.
And for a while, so it didn't used to be NM Life, it used to be called NM Pics. And I changed it when we tried to do the whole business stuff, but it was just a picture site. So that's all I would do is ever post pictures. But I realized that that's what people love, and that's what they love to share. They have so much pride in New Mexico. You see a beautiful picture and they want the world to see it.
Sure. Well, like the podcast you saw, the Live New Mexico, my buddy Jared that does that, like that, he didn't even snap. He just bought a camera one day and just started going out. And beyond the quality of the pictures, because of the quality of the camera, I think without realizing it, like he created a whole nother, opened a door and just now there he goes. And then podcasts and the website and, and
Yep.
purely under the guise that he's doing something he's passionate about. But like you said, the images, man, like his podcast was probably our most popular one.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he's, it's kind of like the breath of New Mexico. Yours is probably going to be our most popular one once it comes. But to really get somebody that, like you said, just finds out that those little things are powerful, because man, every one of his pictures on his personal or his Live New Mexico page that he puts out, it draws more attention than I can get if I put on like a birthday post from like, hey, birthday for my kids. His pictures sometimes will get more, and that's maybe that's a bad example, but like I could totally see what you mean by the imagery is very powerful. We try to do an actual picture of what we're doing, not just some
Right.
I could take a picture of some guy in a scrubs in a hospital doing a speech language, but I'd like to have a picture of Corey, and have that there. And I think the more that your face is out there, the more draw it'll end up having, man. Because I thought it was a company, but you are the company. That's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
A book maybe in the future. Do you think that's something that you could see yourself doing?
Sure. Yeah. I actually have had people tell me that I should do some writing.
Sure.
I enjoy writing.
Yeah.
I do. I've actually written children's books too. I used to have a children's book app out there as a 3-part series about a little kid.
Do you have an app to store all of your apps? Do you hit it and then you see a list?
What's that?
Do you have an app to store all of your apps? 'Cause you guys still hit it.
Yeah, I should. Right?
That's cool.
But yeah, I really enjoy. Who knows? Yeah, I would like. But more than anything, whatever venue it would take to get the word out about language, because I think every parent loves their child and they want to do the best thing, and it doesn't take more energy to use language in particular ways.
Right.
As you're walking along with your kid, you can talk to them or not talk to them, but they're going to be there.
Right.
So whatever venue it would take. So I just was recently when I went and posted on NM Life, I was like, you know what? I've got this audience. Maybe not everybody's going to really care about anything about speech and language. Still a lot of people though. So I should start using it for that reason.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, and I think it's just such a universal. It's not like it's a bad thing. What is it cost for the initial app? It's like
Well, so I have 2 versions out. It's basically the same app. It is the same app, but one's called Speech Tutor Pro, and one Speech Tutor Educational. So the educational one is just a one-time price. I charge $60 for that. But speech therapists are used to spending way more than that on materials and that sort of thing.
Right.
But the pro one, I don't know. I've never done this before, but I have an option to just do like $5 a month.
Oh, okay.
So it's an affordable option for parents. Work with your kids for a few months and then you're done. You don't need it anymore.
Well, and then I'll give you residual income to continually support and build it and make it a living app rather than, that one shot and now we got to get a whole nother one going. I could see that. That's huge, man. So, and at the end, you're just going to stay working here. You don't plan on like making that, like you said, you were thinking about opening your own clinic. I mean, is that a goal? Is that future, Corey?
No, I don't think I'd ever want to do my own clinic. But I would want to do apps full time.
Sure. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
And we're going to tell Dave about that. Get you a VR. I think you guys might hook up good, man.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And there's money in it, and had I done things differently in the beginning, I probably could be doing it full time.
Sure.
I've made a fair amount of money on them over the years, but just made a mess of the business stuff. I've learned a lot about that. So I'm kind of with this app, it's kind of starting fresh, actually.
That's cool. Well, I could see why you came on, man. I'd like to see a nice, fresh version of this, and it's were you want it to be. It seems like you're very comfortable with it so far.
I am. I'm very happy about it.
Your 75 apps you've made.
Yeah. Right.
What were you going to say, man? Sorry.
No, I was just enjoying the conversation.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I think it's really great what you do, man.
Thank
I really
you.
do. And when I saw your post on the page, because I followed it in life, unbeknowing like what you do. So I mean that's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I followed the page for the same exact reasons, like you said. Those images are powerful, and and I, being a bad New Mexican or whatever you want to call it, I haven't been to nearly half of these photos that you share.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, and look, I dream about going to see the ocean and all these other things, and then I'm like, man, I haven't even seen
most of Ruidoso.
Exactly.
I don't know if I've been since I was a kid, man.
Yeah. I used to ride a motorcycle a lot, and we went to Carrizozo on the motorcycles.
Ooh, cool.
And we rode up to the the Billy the Kid stuff, in Lincoln County.
in
and,
Lincoln. Yeah.
It was closed by the time we got up there because it was a long bike ride from
yeah.
Las Lunas. So once we got up there, it was kind of closed. But just to ride through there,
Yeah.
I mean, you could, like you said, you just feel it.
You can
It
feel
has
it.
a feeling there.
Yeah. And I mean, there's still just old buildings that you feel like could have looked that way, 100 years ago.
Well, we went to the No Scum Allowed bar.
Oh, yeah, right on.
And that place.
What's that in White Oaks?
Yes, White Oaks.
Yeah.
Huh.
And that place is amazing. Like, just that feeling of that bar, the
Yeah.
wood. I mean, there's bullet holes in the wood.
Yep.
It's like, this
Huh.
is
I
crazy.
don't even know about this. What's it called again?
It's called No Scum Allowed.
No
and
Scum
it's
Allowed.
in White Oaks,
Yeah.
New Mexico.
It's a popular biker place.
Yeah.
That sounds like that would be the
It
spot.
could get
Yeah.
rowdy.
It does. Yeah, sure, certainly.
They add bullet holes whenever the time is right.
Well, yeah, right.
We'll see.
And I have one of my favorite pictures I've taken. I took a black and white of the front of the bar.
Oh, that's that place. Okay, with your
I-
bikes.
and then the bikes with the sunset.
Yeah.
We were at the hotel. We decided to stay.
Did you stay there that night?
Yeah,
I've always wanted to stay there.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, the sun was going down on our bikes, because we had, different color bikes, and the sun was going down, and it was just, like you said, capturing that moment, capturing that beautiful spot, and
Yeah.
it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was a cold ride home, but it was beautiful. It was worth it.
Yeah.
And that's what's cool about being on the bike too, man, because you're not in the car, you're not looking at your phone.
No, it's real VR. It's real VR.
Yeah,
it can kill
right?
you though. You can look all the way around in it.
Yeah, no
You don't
kidding.
look at the
Well,
road.
VR.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you're not sitting there looking at your phone. You're really enjoying the beauty of what is
Yeah.
New Mexico
focus.
Yeah, I
and
bet.
seeing things, and it's cool.
Yeah, that's one thing that same thing with me that you have is seeing all these pictures. It's like, man, I've lived here almost all my life, and this is an hour and a half away. I got to go
Yeah.
see this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's still I have ended up traveling quite a bit to places because of NM Life,
Really?
but there's still so many other places.
Yeah. We haven't done the catwalks or nothing with my kids, and I've never been either. And I'm like, that sounds like such an easy thing. Like, it literally has a catwalk bolted to the damn cliff. Like, there's no
Right.
hiking involved. You drive up, you get out. I'm
Yeah.
like, but I've never gone. But these pictures come from there, and you're just like, wow, this is here, Yeah, that's
New
awesome.
Mexico, just all you have to do is just glance and it's New Mexico.
Sure.
It's not Arizona. It's not Colorado.
I say that about movies all the time.
Yeah.
We did an interview with a working actor a couple weekends ago, and it was so funny because I kind of thought of that. I was looking at his demo reel, and each one of them was shot in New Mexico, and just the way the sunlight hits, you can just tell that that's a New
You're right.
Mexico sunlight. Like, it's got this brightness to it, this clarity, that you're just, it's like everything comes out in true color. I feel like, you know what I mean? You see that whole land of enchantment. I said it. I know it's cheesy,
Yeah, no.
but I'm enchanted.
It's for a reason. And of all places I've ever been, Carrizozo, the area around Carrizozo, it is pure magic. Again, if you just drove through it at noon, you wouldn't think anything of it. But when that sun goes down in that area of the state,
What'd you call a
It
spider?
fills
The
you
golden
up.
hour?
Yeah.
Golden hour?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So sorry, we got our engineer Spider down here. So we're he's down from Orlando, and I thought it was the funniest thing because he's lived here his whole life up until 6 years ago, and he's seeing it, as we're driving over here to Chatterbox, and he's seeing that golden hour on the Sandias, and it's so like that rosy, beautiful color that splashes, like. What's the artist's name that used to paint out here? The lady, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Adams?
O'Keefe?
O'Keefe. There you go. There you
yeah.
go. And that was her thing, was the lighting and the way that the landscape would look in the New Mexico light. That was huge to her, and the clouds, the way they would structure here.
Yeah, that's the best.
See, now everybody, you got to go to
You gotta go to
the
NM
website,
Life to
NM Life.
check out these pictures.
I see, and my buddies is live New Mexico, so I'm getting it backwards. nmlife.com. So it's facebook.com/.
Yeah. Jeez.
Would it be just
It might be NMLife.io because our website, I think it's still there. NMLife.io.
okay?
But yeah, just search NM
Yeah.
Life on Facebook.
We'll link it in the
In
the
the,
Okay.
in the description, but if I don't know, for whatever reason they're not looking at the description, then they know where to go anyway.
Yeah.
And those two places are where we mostly can see what you're doing, what you're up to,
Yeah.
what you will be up to.
Yeah,
on your 76th app.
It's yeah, right. So, and if you speech therapy stuff is speechtutor.org.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
I remember that
that's
being on the video.
Yeah, and we also at Speech Tutor on Instagram. It's actually Pocket SLP on Facebook. that's kind of what's the name of my business. That's where we got famous as, but
What was it called?
not
again?
famous, but known as. Yeah.
What was it called again?
Pocket SLP.
Okay.
So like speech language pathologist.
Yeah, in your
Okay.
pocket. I got it. Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah. So,
I'm, honestly, like, and not, I really don't want to take away from what you've done, but
Yeah.
I'm blown away that this didn't come into anybody else's mind
Yeah.
beforehand. You know what I mean? Like, to come up with something that's that basic, a pocket speech language, but it's
right.
it's freaking
Beautiful.
genius.
Yeah.
man.
Thanks. Yeah. So I got all kinds of stuff all over the place. But
That's cool. We're really looking forward to, seeing what you have to put out, and I'm really happy that you're able to make this work. And we had navigational problems getting here.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I just it's delightful to see you guys. You obviously have genuine interest in this kind of stuff in New Mexico and everything. So I was delighted that you guys contacted me. It's
Well,
very
thank
cool.
you for having us, man. You were like that picture that I just didn't even know existed until I seen it. And I was like, damn, we're going to show up and talk to Corey. Actually, he did. That was all Fox.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, man.
We all make our connection somehow.
Right.
So,
Cool. Well, I guess we can wrap this thing up, man. Did you have anything else you wanted to tell our listeners?
anything you want to throw out there?
Talk to your kids.
I should say how wonderful my wife is.
Ooh, that's well done. Right
I
here. Give us
really,
some knuckles,
I
man.
really need to do that.
Brownie points.
She's also a speech language pathologist.
Okay.
And she has been there every step of the way as far as helping me with these apps and coming up with the ideas. And like I said, we have 3 kids, and I spend many, many late nights trying to do all this stuff. So she has to pick up all of that.
Behind every great man.
That's
Even
right.
great. I subscribe to that wholeheartedly, man. That's why I put a ring on it. You know,
Exactly.
She keeps me straight and narrow for the most part. And,
that's good, man. What's her name?
Karen.
Karen? Shout out
Lopez
Karen.
Walker. Yeah. And, she works hard. I tell you, she does birth to 3 like I used to do, and she goes into homes, and it's not always easy.
Sure.
So yeah, I gotta spread all the love to her, and then also to my son. My name's Corey Walker, and my son is Jude Sky Walker.
No. Dude, that's awesome.
So I gotta say hi to Jude Skywalker, and then my other son is Johnny Walker. So
Man,
that's perfect.
Johnny Justice Walker. So I gotta say,
Man, you know your name and everything. It just sounds like royalty or something, man. The Walkers, the Skywalker.
So yeah, that's it.
That's
Cool.
awesome. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you guys.